Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. So we're reading the 18th chapter, Madhya Lila, and we're on text 50. Huh? 50. So. Bhugarbha Goshayara Shijiva Goshai. Shijadavacharya Govinda Gosai. Bhugarbha Goshaya Shijiva Gosai. Shijadavacharya Govinda Gosai. Oh, this says, Bhugarbha Goswami, Sri Jiva Goswami, and Sri Jadavacharya and Govinda Goswami also accompanied Srila Rupa Goswami. So, the last so many verses describing how Rupa Goswami had stayed in Mathura for 1 month during the time Gopal deity had come to Vittaleshwar's place. And now it's describing all these great personalities that were accompanying Rupa Goswami. We should note that Rupa Goswami is the main, or the leader, and so many other persons are there. Raghunath Bhatta. The last verse describes Gopal Bhatta and Raghunath Das, Raghunath Bhatta, and Lokanath Das Goswami. So already we have, 4 of the 6 Goswamis are there. So Bande Rupa Sanatano Raghu Yago Shri Jiva Gopalako. Okay, so this now is describing Bhugarbha Goswami, Jiva Goswami, Yadavacharya, Govinda Goswami. They all accompanied Rupa Goswami. 51. Shri Uddhava Dasa Madhava Dvijan. Shri Gopala Dasa Ara Dasa Narayan. He was also accompanied by Sri Uddhava Das, Madhava, Sri Gopal Das, and Narayan Das. 52. Govinda Bhakta Ara Vani Krishna Das. Kundari Kaksha Ishanara Lagu Haridas. So, this is self-explanatory as far as the word for words. Translation. The great devotee Govinda, Vani Krishna Das, Kundari Aksha Ishan, Lagu Haridas also accompanied him. Purport. Lagu Haridas should not be confused with Junior Haridas, who committed suicide in Prayag. Generally, a devotee is called Haridas, and consequently, there are many Haridas. The chief was Thakur Haridas. There was also Madhyam Haridas. And so middle, Lagu means lower, Choto means small, Bharahari. I don't know, is Bharahari Haridas Thakur? It's a different. So, and Haridas of Aryo is a Govardhan itself. So, and Prabhupada says here, generally a devotee is called Haridas. Sometimes Krishna Das also. Just like one devotee was complaining he didn't like his name. So Bhagavad said, then you can call yourself Krishna Das. Jiv Krishna Das, Bhaktivinoda Thakur says, Jiv Krishna Das, e Vishwas Korletor Dukonai. You should all know that you are all Krishna Das. Bhaktivinoda Thakur says, Jiv Krishna Das, e Vishwas. You should have faith that you're Krishna Das. Korletor, and if you chant Radha Krishna Bol Bol, if you chant Radha Krishna, of course we chant Hare Krishna, we're including Radharani in there. So, but Bhaktivinoda Thakur was saying Radha Krishna, E Matra Biko Chai. I'm only asking one begging. I'm begging because Bhaktivinoda Thakur is very humble. He's begging. I'm only asking one thing. Don't give me anything, but if you can chant Radha Krishna, and your life, you'll give up all your miseries. E Dukkha. All misery be finished. So, okay, back to here. In Bhakti Ratnakara, sixth wave, Ratnakara, so that is the jewel mine of bhakti. So there's waves in the mine. Ocean, I guess it's an ocean, or sometimes a mine of jewels. So that Bhakti Ratnakara is describing so many things generally happened after Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's disappearance. There is a list of many of the chief devotees who accompanied Rupa Goswami. So now we're adding more added on here. Goswami Gopal Bhatta Ati Doya Moy Bugharba Shri Lokana Gunera Alay Shri Madhava Shri Paramananda Bhatta Charja Shri Madhu Panje Jara Charitrascharja Premi Krishna Das Brahmachari Yadavacharya Nayana Kripavan Shri Pundarikaksha Goshai Govinda Ishan Shri Govinda Bani Krishna Das Atyudara Shri Uddhava Madhye Gove Gatija Dvija Haridas Krishna Das Kabiraj Shri Gopal Das Ja Alokika Kai Shri Gopala Madhavadi Jateka Vaishnav. Yeah, there it is. Huh? Madhavadi, beginning with Madhava, huh? Or so then that would mean, and many others. There it is. The following Vaishnavas were present with Srila Rupa Goswami: the merciful Gopal Bhatta Goswami, Bhugarbha Goswami, Lokanath Das Goswami, a reservoir of good qualities, Shri Madhava, Paramananda Bhattacharya, Shri Madhu Pandit, whose characteristics are all wonderful, Premi Krishna Das, Krishna Das Brahmachari, Yadava Acharya, the merciful Narayan, Pundarik Aksha Goswami, Govinda, Ishan, Shri Govinda, the magnanimous Bani Krishna Das, Shri Uddhava, who occasionally visited Bengal, Dvija Hari Das, Krishna Das Kaviraj, Gopal Das, whose body is completely spiritual, Shri Gopal, Madhava, and many others. So it's quite a crowd of luminaries, like to say, the stars. And in this case, Rupa Goswami is like the moon, but these stars are very bright. Krishnadas Kaviraj had some association, it looks like, with Rupa Goswami. And so he has personal realization. He's writing the book, so he's giving the news here. Okay. Om Jnana Tamaranda Shigaranjana Shavaka Chakshurmilitam Jana Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Tapadakamalam Shri Gurum Vaishnavam Shri Shri Rupam Sarviratam Sahagana Raganatam Vikantam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padam Sahagana Alida Shiva Shakamitam Cha. So this is the primary or one of the main characteristics of great personalities, that they're glorifying other great personalities. I mean, the whole Chaitanya Charitamrita is nothing but giving the character of Lord Chaitanya and all the other devotees. This is like an amazing thing. Although we don't get so many details, but at least we're getting the details of all the personalities. Like if you want to hear about Lokanath Lokira Jivana, we're chanting that every day when we do the Guru Puja. That's Narottam Das Thakur, and his guru is Lokanath Goswami. So generally we won't hear about Lokanath Goswami. In Chaitanya we won't hear anything basically, because only his name is here. He was so humble, he didn't want his name. He told Krishnadas Kaviraj, okay, you're making a book, I don't want my name in the book. You know, how many of us can say, I don't want my name in the book? No, nobody. I don't think anybody's like that. And Gopal Bhatta was like that. Don't mention my name in your book, please. Because, I mean, in those days the book wasn't going to be like on the New York Times bestseller list. Everyone would know immediately, but these devotees are so much wary of any kind of fame, any type of notoriety. Like Madhavendra Puri, he didn't care for any notoriety. He ran from the place. When he got that sweet rice from the deity, he took off immediately. He thought, oh, everyone's going to hear about this. I don't want to have anything to do with it. But when he got to Puri, everybody already knew. There was no Facebook or anything, Twitter. Nobody was tweeting out. And he was already, how did they know? Anyway, so he can't escape this type of fame. So Lokanath and Bhugarba is mentioned here. They were friends. It is said that Lokanath his father was a great devotee. What was his name? I forgot now. And he himself he didn't want to take household life, but he was an associate of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. It is said that he's initiated by, is it Gadadhar Pandit? That's Bhugarba, or Sanatana Goswami. Anyway, the Lokanath, he understood that Mahaprabhu, by indication, he understood that Mahaprabhu would be taking sannyas in a few days. So he became very upset just thinking about it. And he took off. Because Chaitanya Mahaprabhu told him to go to Vrindavan. You can take all the flowers out at one time, then you won't have to crinkle the paper. Anyway, that's the story in that. So anyway, Bhugarba is said to be his uncle on the father's side. So they were great friends, and because Lokanath was so distressed just knowing that Mahaprabhu would take sannyas and being sent to Vrindavan, separation from Mahaprabhu, Bhugarba went with him to Vrindavan. And there he was separated from Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, feeling great separation his whole life. And it's a very poignant and dramatic story, because when he was in Vrindavan, he got there, him and Bhugarba, before the other devotees. They were the first Navadvip devotees to go there. So when he heard that Mahaprabhu had taken sannyas and had gone to South India, he decided, I can't take it anymore. I must go to South India. Can you imagine trying to find Mahaprabhu in South India? No GPS, no. You're walking the whole way.
At least 1,500 kilometers.
What's that?
At least 1,500 kilometers.
1,500 kilometers, more, I think. I think just to Bengal is almost that. In South India. So he went. And then he heard from reports that Mahaprabhu had gone to Puri, gone back to Vrindavan, and he's in South India. Can you imagine? How amazing that is. So he went back to Vrindavan. I mean, we don't know how long it took. And he went back there. Mahaprabhu was, of course, gone. They said, well, last we heard he went to Prayag. He went to Prayag. And in Prayag, of course, Mahaprabhu was already gone, long before. So he was just fainting, about to die, and then Mahaprabhu appeared to him in a dream vision and told him, look, just go to Vrindavan and stop moving around. You'll never catch me. And so he went back to Vrindavan and he stayed there the rest of his time. So, and at least then Rupa and Sanatan came, and Gopal Bhatta came there, and he felt, of course, much relief. He had he was praying, and the deity, Krishna appeared to him as this deity, Radha Vinod, which he worshipped. People in Vrindavan were offering him a temple different times, but he declined. He was so humble, and he carried his deity in a big bag, worshipped the deity like that. And this way he was always ecstatic. But he was very humble. He didn't want any disciples. When Narottam Das associated with him, he decided, I must become initiated. He begged him for initiation. And there's a famous story that Narottam Das was cleaning his place where Lokanath was going and passing in the evening or in the morning. But in the evening, at night, Narottam would go there. He's the son of a zamindar, a king, practically. So Lokanath thought this Narottam, he's a great personality. I don't have a qualification. But when he saw how humble he was cleaning up this place, his heart melted, and he took one disciple. So if you're going to have one disciple, you want to have Narottam Das Thakur. So Narottam Das Thakur wrote the Prema Bhakti Chandrika and Prarthana. It's great songs that Vaishnavas are always singing. He's a great celebrated person. When we sing Jayanilo Premadana, when we have to think as Lokanath, he's feeling separation from all these devotees. Here, in 2, 3 verses, 4, 5 verses, where we can feel a pain of separation, a drop of we're praying to feel a drop, 1 millionth drop of what Narottam Das was feeling in separation from his guru. And in this song we just sang, I thought of singing that song. Not that I know too many songs. But Narottam Das also wrote Rupa Goswami, Manjari Pada, the song that Srila Bhaktisiddhanta was hearing the time he was leaving his body. You are my everything, my life, sampada, every asset I have. This is what Narottam is praying. So we are following in the footsteps of Rupa Goswami, Rupa Nugas. This is some of Rupa Goswami's Leela. Rupa Goswami is, since we are Rupa Nuga, we can understand that he's Rupa Raghunatha Parijara As, Chaitanya Charitamrita. So Kaviraj Goswami is, at the end of every chapter, he's offering pranam, praying for the blessings of Rupa and Raghunath Parijara As, Chaitanya Charitamrita, Kohe Krishna Das, Krishna Das Kaviraj. He's praying to Rupa. Rupa Raghunatha Pari, Narottam Das is praying here. That Akuti, when will I develop the enthusiasm to study all the books of Rupa and Raghunath? So we shouldn't think that he didn't have enthusiasm. Obviously, he had the greatest enthusiasm for all the writings of Rupa Raghunath. And so we have to follow in those footsteps of Narottam Das. H.I. Goshai Jar, in that song also it's describing the 6 Goswami. The dust of their feet is our food, our 6 panchagras, 5 types of food stuff. Is there 5 types of food stuff? We know that in Ayurveda there's 6 types of food stuff, but a panchagras there. Anyway, he's saying 5 types of food stuff. So it's a wonderful meditation of this pastime. Rupa Goswami surrounded by Gopal Bhatta. Gopal Bhatta was accepted as a brother of Rupa and Sanatan when he came to Vrindavan. He had been a child. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu came to his place in Sri Rangam during the Chaturmasya season, 4 months. The sannyasis, because it's a rainy season, they don't travel. So, but Mahaprabhu came into the temple of Sri Rangam dancing and ecstasy and all. Everybody was, wow, chamatkar, amazed. And especially Venkata Bhatta, his son Gopal. So during that time. You can read about it also, Chaitanya Charitamrita, how the conversation that took place there, how Lord Chaitanya teased Venkata about that you worship Narayan and Lakshmi, but how come it is that Lakshmi performed so many austerities to get the association of Krishna, but still she couldn't get it. So it's a very ecstatic conversation. And then Venkata Bhatt said, why are you joking like this? You know I don't understand. It's over my head. You tell me all these things. So, and Gopal Bhatta was there doing service. He was getting prasad every day, worshipping Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, but he's still feeling some pain that he didn't have darshan of Mahaprabhu. He did actually, he loved Mahaprabhu, but he wanted to have the darshan of Mahaprabhu in his Navadvip Leela. He understood because he's a Brijbasi. He could understand that this pastimes, that he had missed the pastimes. But Mahaprabhu appeared to him maybe more than one time. We don't know. Gopal Bhatta was so learned that, and so humble. Can you imagine that Jiva Goswami, in his very first verse of his Sandarbhas, he offers respects. And he doesn't even mention, he's honoring so much Gopal Bhatta's desire not to be mentioned. He just says, Dakshina Vacha, a great pundit from the southern India, that's all he said. He doesn't mention his name also. So Gopal Bhatta didn't want to be mentioned. But although he wrote the outline, he gave notations for the 6 Sandarbhas. I mean, how many people, raise your hand, think you can do that? Anyway, he did it. He was so learned that although he didn't have books, he knew by heart so many hundreds of books. So Jiva Goswami was inspired by Gopal Bhatta, and Sanatana Goswami also, Hari Bhakti Vilas, he took inspiration also from Gopal Bhatta. Gopal Bhatta did not want his name mentioned by any of them. And Kaviraj Goswami he's mentioning, that's all. Just a name, no glorification. Because he was asked personally, but when we go to the mention here, Bhakti Ratnakara, that Narahari, he did not hear that, so he transgressed this transcendental transgression, so he could glorify these great devotees in his book, Bhakti Ratnakara. It's worth reading that book. There's so many pastimes of Rupa Goswami. They're given here, especially in, you read in Ancha 1. In Ancha first chapter, Rupa Goswami presents his Vidagdha Madhava and his Lita Madhava. At least he had started writing those books. The conversation supposedly between Rupa Goswami, one day Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was, he surprised Rupa, used to stay with Haridas Thakur, and he went there and he wanted to see, he said, what are you writing? You're writing some book, I want to see it. And he glanced at it, and he took one verse, he saw the writing, he said, Rupa Goswami's writing is like a rose of pearls, this is not ordinary writing. And already Rupa Goswami had written one, became immediately very famous verse. Of course, Rupa Goswami is also very humble, so he was feeling very embarrassed and ashamed amidst Ramananda Roy, Sarvabhauma, and Swarup Damodar. But Mahaprabhu was glorifying him like anything. So the next day, after visiting Haridas and Rupa, he went to, he said, now we're going to see, he said to Sarvabhauma and to, especially, they mentioned Ramananda Roy and Swarup Damodar, his very close associates. We're going to drop in on Rupa Goswami and see what he's up to. And on the way, he was glorifying him like with 1,000 mouths, Rupa Goswami. He was reciting over and over, Tunde Tandavani Ratin Vitanati Tundavali Labdai Karna Krodakadamadi Gatayate Karna Bude Bhyaspiham Chaita Pranga Sangani Vijayate Savendrana Katin No Jane Janita Kia Bhyamitai Krishna Iti Vanadvai. This verse, by the way, in Ancha first chapter is given 3 times. We don't find that any verse is practically given twice anywhere, but he's 3 times given because Mahaprabhu and all those great devotees, they were so much enamored of that verse that we don't know how much nectar is produced by the 2 syllables, Krishna. And this is just one verse that he wrote in the beginning of Vidagdha Madhava. And so, because Rupa Goswami was given favor of Mahaprabhu, Rupa and Sanatan, it is said there by Kavi Kanapur, Lupteti, that the Vrindavana Leelas were practically lost. And from within the heart, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu enlightened, enlivened, inspired Rupa Goswami. He gave him, of course there was so much association, but especially when they went to Dasasvamedha Ghat in Prague, for 10 days, imagine 10 days with Mahaprabhu all day. Who knows if they took rest, but still, 10 days is not that long if you think about it. I mean, nowadays you take a college course, you study to become a doctor for 12 years. I mean, 10 days, anyway. So, Hridyasya, and in the beginning of the Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, maybe even the second verse, Hridyasya Pranaya Pravartitoham Varakarupopi. Many times Rupa Goswami is so a brilliant genius that he sneaks his name in Varaka Rupa. And he's saying, he puts his name in there, especially when he's Lagu Rupa, he calls himself small, humble, nothing, And so in that verse he says, I have been inspired to write this book, Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, in a heart. Hridyasya Pravartito means I'm beginning this book. And, they didn't have backspace delete button. When you're writing, like Rupa Goswami, they're writing, boom, the verse, that's it. So, you can well imagine. So, he's saying there, now I'm beginning this book, Pravartitom, Varaka means a fool. The fool, Rupa Goswami, if he's a fool, what can we say we are? So he's claiming he's a fool. Varakarupopi. Tasya hare patakamalam bande Chaitanya devasya. Therefore I offer my respects to the lotus feet of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. That's the second verse, I believe. In the first verse, he describes Krishna, Kila Rasamrita Morti Prasama Rita Palahi Taraka. He's describing the different gopis, the gradations of the gopis. And the very next verse, he's glorifying Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Actually, when he was being questioned, when he recited, Mahaprabhu kept reciting the verse. And the verse he became famous in the beginning was because Mahaprabhu used to chant the Sahatya Darpana verse about the Revasi, the river, and on the bank of this river, which is seemingly a mundane poem that Mahaprabhu used to sing very loudly among many other verses. He sang many verses during Rath Yatra. And people would not quite understand, why is he singing Sahitya Darpana? That's like a mundane poetry. It's great poetry, but still it's mundane, considered like mundane lovers. But Mahaprabhu was seeing that as Radha Krishna. He was like hidden. Sometimes, many times, Mahaprabhu is just like when he meets Ramananda Roy, there's 1,000 people there, and many brahmanas. And when he met Ramananda Roy, they were in ecstasy. So then they kind of like, when they see that these brahmanas are kind of not understanding, they're sajatiya. They're not sajatiya, with the other word, they're vijatiya. Outsiders are not understanding the internal pastimes of Mahaprabhu and Ramananda Roy. There's Lalita and Radharani, Radha Krishna, is not different. So and sometimes they withdraw their ecstasy, and later on Mahaprabhu he cannot withdraw, so he just stays secluded. But in the beginning he was sometimes withdrawing like that. So during the Rath Yatra he was chanting this verse. Rupa Goswami understood what it was, and he wrote another verse, Priyaso Krishna Sahachari Kurukshetra Militas. I am the same Radharani. It's the same kind of syntax as the other verse, but it's put into total, it's Radharani speaking. So he wrote that verse, Tataham sa Radha, I am the same Radharani, but they were meeting in Kurukshetra. And this is such great separation because she didn't want to see Krishna. Radharani doesn't like to see Krishna all dressed up with big armies and elephants and chariots. But still, I want to go to on the bank of Kalindi, where Krishna is Panchama Duse, playing his flute wonderfully on the fifth note, like that. So Rupa Goswami was empowered, completely understood, and so much so that Mahaprabhu was so much in ecstasy, he took Rupa Goswami on his lap, and he gave him like this, like slapping his face like this. You know, like you do a small kid that you love, your kid or something. Like that, he was touching Rupa Goswami. And so the others were seeing, you know, like that. But that had taken place already, so Mahaprabhu was chanting that verse on the way to Rupa Goswami and Haridas Thakur's ashram, Siddha Bakul, I think Siddha Bakul, anyway. So he was asked to recite the verse, the Tunde Tanuri, we don't know how much nectar. And finally, it was recited by Mahaprabhu, I believe. Rupa Goswami didn't want to, in the beginning he was too shy. The verse is so amazing, and they all said, oh, we have never heard any, but we have heard so many verses describing the holy name, but we've never heard something quite like this. When the holy name enters on the mouth and it dances in the tongue, then we want so many tongue, millions. When it goes in the ear, Karna Krota, the ear to Karna Krota Kadambini, we want to sprout many ears, millions and millions of ears, so we can hear it better. We don't quite, gives us a little idea how much attraction those devotees have for the holy name. And in the third line, he describes that when it's entering the ears, dancing on the tongue, entering the ears, Chaita prangana sangani vijayate. Vijayate means it conquers Chaita, the consciousness. All the other senses are completely conquered. Chaita prangana sangani, it dances in the courtyard of the heart. Sarvendriyana Katim, no jane, therefore Prabhupada quoted this verse on a morning walk. And we don't know. No jane means we have no idea how much nectar these two syllables, Krishna, Varnadvayi, these two syllables, Krishna, have produced. Amrita, so much Amrita, so much nectar has been produced. So this is when they're walking, imagine they were just walking to the ashram, Mahaprabhu was glorifying Rupa Goswami. I mean, Rupa Goswami was known, but he was so humble. And then the devotees were like, wow. So Rupa Goswami started was asked by Sri Damodar, please read your book, and Ramananda Roy. Actually, it says that Mahaprabhu was examining Ramananda Roy. Imagine his most intimate associates, the gopis. And it says he was examining them also. Why was he examining? What does that mean? Pariksha, he was examining them to see. He's trying to see how they interact with Rupa Goswami. We don't know. What does that mean? Is he examining them? So I was thinking, is he thinking that maybe they're going to become a little envious because Rupa Goswami was so empowered to make descriptions of Krishna? Because Ramananda Roy and Sri Damodar. Anyway, he wanted to see Sarvabhauma. He wanted to see how they interact. And they were asking because they were so expert. They knew everything about how to prepare poems and plays about Krishna. It was very detailed. It's not like just writing Mary Had a Little Lamb or something. It is Sahitya Darpana. Rupa Goswami wrote his own book on that. Naraka Chandrika. So they were very familiar with Sahitya Darpana and Bhatri, he wrote, Rupa Goswami was so familiar with all these books. And himself. So they asked him detailed questions. So what is this? How do you prepare? Because there's so many ways just to begin I think it's pravochan, how to begin a play, you know. And he said, what is the first thing that inspiration for your play? And he said, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is the first inspiration. I said, oh, okay. We understand. So then he recited one verse that Kaviraj Goswami puts in the beginning of Chaitanya Charitamrita, Anarpita chirim charat karunayavatina kalo samarparitum monatodvara bhakti shriyam. Anarpita chirim. There's not been given this ujjvala, this conjugal love, especially in the way Rupa Goswami has given in his books. Anarpita chirim charat, in very long chirim charat, karunayava. Karunavatina kalo. In this Kali Yuga, Mahaprabhu has come full of mercy to give this unatojala rasa, highest rasa. And so when he was reciting it, Anarpita chirim karunavatina kalo samarpayitam unatojala sabhakti sriya, Hari Purata Sundara, he's describing how Mahaprabhu is golden. Of course, Mahaprabhu was sitting before them. Hari Purata Sundara, Duti Kadamba Sandipataha, Sada Hridaya Kandare Spuraduva Sachinandana. Therefore, he's giving this blessing. Kaviraj Goswami is exactly giving this verse, that within your heart, and not just Rupa Goswami's heart, but everyone's heart, may they be inspired by Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Because he's sitting in the heart. Chaitanyakyam param tattvam sarva karana karanam. Described that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is sarva karana karanam. He's the cause of all causes. He's the paramatma. Chaitanyakyam param tattvam. He's the paratattva. And the parama, in the other verses that Kaviraj Goswami puts there, Yadadvaitam Brahmopanishadi Tarapeshatanaba, yet mantaryami, he's antaryami, he's within the heart. So when one becomes pure, like Rupa Goswami, such a person, he doesn't have to become pure, of course, but there's an Aksa Leela. When Chaitanya Mahaprabhu first came to the Ramakeli, and Rupa and Sanatana were there offering their prayers like that. From the beginning, from the early time, as soon as they heard about Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, they were inspired. But they had to work for that horrible king, Hussein Shah Nawab. They were so brilliant that they were forced to work there. And they were quite young, but they were so brilliant that the king forced them to work there for him. So there's so many pastimes with Rupa Goswami. But Mahaprabhu did not like that verse. He said, why did you put this verse there? You have ruined the whole composition. Why are you glorifying? They were asking, but Ramananda Roy and Sri Damodar Sarvabhauma, they were asking, who is your worshipful deity? So he had to say it, but he was very embarrassed to say it. And then Mahaprabhu was saying, this is like some detestable poison that you put in here. Why are you glorifying like that? Don't glorify me. So Mahaprabhu was exhibiting the greatest humility. Don't put this poison in it. Poisoned your whole book now. Who could take that seriously? He came there to hear the book, just finished glorifying Rupa Goswami on the way there. 1,000 mouths. And Rupa Goswami went on reciting. But when we read the history, actually, this was in 1515. Rupa Goswami didn't finish the books. First he was going to do one book. And then he was admonished in a dream by Satyabhama. Said, you should have a book for me, for the Dwarka pastimes. Although Satyabhama that's a tricky thing. So he put 2 books, the Dagda Madhava and Lalita Madhava. We should try to read those books in our life. Of course, ordinary circumstances wouldn't be able to read those books. They're the highest Sanskrit poetry, but devotees have translated, so we should, if we have some time, we can read Rupa Goswami's books. We get a good portion of it, a nice taste of it, in Chaitanya Charitamrita. Rupa Goswami's verses are given. Shudanam Chandrinam Api Madhuriman Madadamini Dadana Radari Pranay Ganai Saravitam is amazing verses. He's describing that that Krishna's pastimes, how they defeat the nectar produced on the moon. Shudanam Chandrinam Pranitam Te Trishnam Haratu Leela Sikarini. He describes it. But in English, it kind of falls short. But when you relish it, hearing it in Sanskrit, it's amazing. What is this? Sikarini is a blend of camphor and sugar and some black pepper like that. It's a nectar. So in so many ways, Rupa Goswami is describing Santod Pagama, Samantat Santot Pagama, Vishama, Sarasarani. It destroys our path in the material world by hearing these Krishna's pastimes. And Rupa Goswami was able to describe it. One could almost say as good or better than Shukadev. Who knows? But they were all very well learned in the Srimad Bhagavatams and chanting the 10th canto pastime so many times. But Mahaprabhu also liked to hear the Dhruva's pastimes and Prahlad's pastimes. But, and he liked to hear about Chandidasa's poetry, Bilva Mangala Thakur's poetry. So, this is the idea why they're surrounding Rupa Goswami. Just see, when you think about how great Gopal Bhatta is, Raghunath Das Goswami. Raghunath Das Goswami is feeling so much separation when Rupa Goswami disappeared. There's one shloka where he's describing that he's seeing Radha Kund is just like the gaping mouth of a tigress ready to devour him. He was living in Radha Kund, and the Govardhan Hill was like a big snake, vyag, a python ready to crush him. Jivatu Rahatasya Me, feeling this separation from Rupa Goswami. Gorindro, he's saying that Mahagoshtim, the whole Braj is empty. Sunyayate Mahagoshtim. He's seeing the whole Vrindavan empty. Nothing. Sunyayate. Like Mahaprabhu was saying, Sunyayate Jagat Sarvam Govinda Virahename. Without Govinda, the whole universe is empty. But he was feeling such a pain, Raghunath Das Goswami. He's describing that in that book, Vilapa Kusumanjali, the Mukta Charita, separation. So, because these persons are so great, so expert in writing, we can feel that same pain, a little, we can get a tiny taste of it, the pain Narottam's feeling in separation from Lokanath Goswami and all these other great personalities. So here, all these personalities are mentioned at one time. So what to speak of how much more we can relish their separation or relish their association. Well, that's the something. Anyone have any comments here on this? Ron's gone, or else I'm sure he would say something. Yes.
I was going to ask you about the song that was everyone thought was mundane, that he was
What song was that?
You were talking.
It starts off.
Who wrote that?
That's
song?
Sahitya Darpana is written by I forget what it's.
Yeah, I guess
But that's a book that they all studied. Rupa Goswami studied this book.
Mm-hmm.
Lord Chaitanya knew the book. I'm sure they all knew it by heart. And because it gives, you could say it's a mundane book. It is a mundane book, but it gives the basics. What basics means it's very, very detailed. How to compose Sanskrit poetry. So many of the terms they take are from that book.
But the person who wrote it, did they mean it to be the way
No, it was written several hundred years, before. So,
it was meant to be mundane?
it's meant for anyone who is just like you have a textbook, just like you learn Sanskrit. When Jiva Goswami learned Sanskrit, he learned a regular Sanskrit, Painini or whatever, but then he made his own version of it. His own Sanskrit grammar that people study now, which is all based on Krishna. Whereas Painini has some nonsensical sutras, but he makes it simple, more easy anyway, to memorize, to learn Sanskrit like that. So similarly, Yuktahara Viharasya, even we know from Rupa Goswami, Anasaktasya Vishayan, we don't give up anything, but we use it for Krishna's service, some Krishna Sambandhe. So they're using those books, they use that book and other books to learn. I mean, they all learn Sanskrit. I mean, I don't know, when you think of someone like Shivananda Kavi Kanapur, he was 7 years old, he was reciting first of all, Mahaprabhu asked him to chant Hare Krishna, and he didn't say anything. So then they went back, because he's Shivananda Sen, and he'd been named by Lord Chaitanya. His name was given when he was in the womb. So Lord Chaitanya said to Surabdhamana, he said, I have the whole world. I even got animals to chant in the forest of Jarikanda. And this boy doesn't chant Hare Krishna. Can you say something? And Surabdhamana said, he's chanting in his mind. Because the pastimes, So he's chanting in his mind. So then later on, when they saw the boy, he chanted one wonderful Sanskrit verse. 7 years old. So, Jiva Goswami, he learned, fully learned everything. Usually takes 12 years, he learned in 1 year. So, but still, not like people don't use those books when they're learning. Mahaprabhu in his youth, he was a great pandit. He knew all the book. No one could defeat him. Nobody. Not in the entire world. Not in any shape, way, or form. That conquering pandit came there. He learned the hard way, or the nice way. And Rupa Goswami, Priyasa Rupe is described. He's very dear to Lord Chaitanya. He has Tatana Rupe, Eka Rupe. He's not different from Lord Chaitanya. It says he completely resembles Lord Chaitanya. He knows the ecstasy of Lord Chaitanya. He's completely empowered by Premasa Rupe, Sahajabi Rupe. He's naturally very beautiful, and he's able to proclaim all the leelas of Krishna being empowered by Lord Chaitanya. This very nice verse. That verse is by Kavi Kanapur. Amazing. It's in Chaitanya Charitamrita. Priyasvarupe, Dayatasvarupe. He's the recipient of all the mercy of Lord Chaitanya. Anyway.
You're mentioning, I kind of missed it, Anarpita Chiram Chirat. You said that verse, Rupa Goswami, he has written in his some other book, the one that Krishnadas Kaviraj quotes. Is that written?
He quotes Anarpita Chirin Chirat. It's one of the invocation verses, beginning verses in Vidagdha Madhava.
Oh, okay.
So that's like the, third, fourth verse of Chaitanya Charitamrita. Mangalacharan verses. The first 17 verses of Chaitanya Charitamrita are the invocation verses. It describes Lord Chaitanya, then Nityananda, and then describes Advaita and Srivas, like that.
But that particular verse and are other verses also from Rupa Goswami?
Well, many verses Kaviraj Goswami is quoting from Rupa Goswami, but not in the beginning, 17, only that one. One is from Sri Damodar, one is his own. First he starts off, Bandeshi Krishna Chaitanya Nityananda Sahorito Goradaya Pushpa. They've arisen like the sun and the moon, Mahaprabhu and Nityananda.
And what about Radha Krishna Pranay?
Radha Krishna Pranay Vikritir Ladini Shakti Rasmari Katmanava Bibhovi. That's, I think, his verse, yes. Anything else? Okay, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna.